The council chamber on Prime was enormous. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. 12 massive thrones surrounded a circular floor made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Each throne held a representative from the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. They had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Ambassador walked across that crystal floor with steady steps. His black suit looked plain compared to the colorful robes and armor of the alien counselors around him. Behind him walked Captain in her military uniform, and Chief Scientist Minu carrying a data tablet. The three humans looked small in this place built to make visitors feel tiny and unimportant. Stopped at the center of the circle. Above him, the 12 counselors stared down. Some had multiple eyes. Others had scales or feathers or skin that changed colors. All of them looked at the humans with the same expression. They thought humans were children playing with toys they didn't understand. Counselor spoke first. He was from the hegemony, a species that looked like massive bears covered in metal plates. His voice rumbled like thunder. Ambassador, you have been summoned here to answer for your species' crimes against galactic peace. Kept his face calm. Crimes, we have broken no laws. You have expanded into 17 star systems in just 3 years, said Counselor. She was from the Ashen Collective, beings made of living crystal that glowed from within. You build colonies without permission. You mine resources without asking. You act as if the galaxy belongs to you alone. Those systems were unclaimed, replied. We checked the territorial maps provided by this council. Every colony we built was in empty space. Empty does not mean available, growled. There are traditions, protocols, ways things have always been done. Your species ignores all of this. Minu stepped forward. Perhaps if these traditions were written down somewhere, we could follow them, but nobody has given us any clear rules. Several counselors made angry noises. One of them, a floating jellyfish-like creature named, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Rules. We do not need to write down what everyone should know. The fact that you don't understand shows how young and foolish your species truly is. Captain's hand moved slightly toward her sidearm, then stopped, gave her a small shake of his head. Not yet. Counselor stood up from his throne. Even sitting, he had been massive. Standing, he looked like a mountain. Enough debate. The Galactic Council has made its decision. Humanity will accept the following terms or face the consequences. He gestured with one huge paw. A hologram appeared in the air above the crystal floor. Read the terms carefully. His expression didn't change, but inside, anger began to burn. You will cease all expansion immediately, continued. You will enter a period of integration that will last 100 years. During this time, the Council will supervise all human activities in space. You will share all your technology with us. You will submit to our guidance in all matters. And you will surrender 8 of your 17 colonies, added, as payment for the disorder you have caused. The other counselors nodded in agreement. They looked pleased with themselves. They had put the upstart humans in their place. Looked up at them. You want us to give up half our colonies, to stop growing for 100 years, to become your servants. Think of it as learning, said in his musical voice. You are children, we are teachers. This is for your own good. And if we refuse, asked, her voice was cold and professional. Smiled, showing teeth like daggers. Then the council will be forced to take action. We have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. We have kept peace in this galaxy for longer than your species has existed. Do not think you can stand against us. Was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the counselors waited. They expected him to argue, to beg, to ask for better terms. That's what young species always did when the council made demands. I request a recess, said finally. 6 hours to discuss this with my government. The counselors looked at each other, laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Of course, take your time, think carefully about your answer, but know this, human, There is only one correct choice. Accept our terms or watch your colonies burn. Bowed slightly. It was the minimum politeness required. Then he turned and walked back across the crystal floor, and Minyu followed him. The three humans left the council chamber in silence. Behind them, the counselors began talking among themselves. They spoke in relaxed, happy tones. Some of them were already discussing how they would divide up the human colonies. Others talked about what human technology they wanted to study first. A few even made jokes about how the humans had looked so small and frightened. None of them noticed the small device that Minyu had quietly placed under the edge of the crystal floor. It was recording everything they said. In the human delegation's quarters sat down heavily. The calm mask he had worn in the council chamber finally cracked. They planned this from the start. Those terms aren't meant to be accepted. They're meant to give them an excuse for war. Minyu pulled out his tablet and began typing rapidly. I'm sending an encrypted message to Earth now. Priority 1. They need to know that diplomacy has failed. Checked her weapon, then looked out the window at the stars beyond. How long until our fleets can be ready? They've been ready for 2 years, said quietly. We knew this was coming. We hoped we were wrong, but we prepared anyway. 6 hours, Minyu said, looking up from his tablet. That's what you asked for. Do we really need that long? Stood up and straightened his suit. No, but they think we do. They think we're scrambling, begging our leaders to let us accept their terms. Let them think that. Let them feel confident. Meanwhile, we'll make sure everything is ready. Ready for what? Asked, though she already knew the answer. For humanity to show the galaxy what happens when you mistake patience for weakness, said. For 3 years, we've smiled and been polite. We've followed their vague rules and tried to fit in. And they've taken that as proof that we're weak, that we're children who can be pushed around. He looked at both of them. In 6 hours, we're going to walk back into that chamber, and we're going to teach the Galactic Council the most important lesson about humanity. What lesson? Minyu asked. That we don't need their permission to exist, that we don't need their approval to thrive, and that if they try to cage us, they'll learn exactly why Earth is the only planet in this galaxy that managed to produce space-faring life while still having active wars on its surface. We didn't become peaceful because we evolved beyond conflict. We became peaceful because we got really, really good at it and decided to stop. But we never forgot how. Smiled, it was not a nice smile. The Council is about to have a very bad day. Not just the Council, said. The entire galaxy, everything is about to change, and it starts in 6 hours when we tell them no. 6 hours passed quickly. The counselors had spent that time drinking expensive liquids and telling stories about other young species they had disciplined over the centuries. They laughed about how those species had tried to resist at first, then eventually bowed and accepted council rule. Was particularly loud, bragging about battles he had won decades ago. When the doors opened and the 3 humans walked back in, the laughter stopped, but the confidence remained. The counselors settled back into their thrones, ready to hear humanity's surrender. Walked to the center of the crystal floor again. This time, he didn't look up at the counselors. He looked straight ahead at nothing in particular. His face was empty of emotion. Ambassador, rumbled, have you brought us your answer? Has humanity decided to accept wisdom? I have an answer, said. His voice was clear and carried through the massive chamber. Humanity has reviewed the terms presented by this council. We have consulted with our leaders on Earth and all our colonies. We have considered every word carefully. Good, said. Her crystal body glowed brighter with satisfaction. Then you understand this is the only path forward. We understand perfectly, replied. Which is why humanity rejects these terms completely, all of them. We will not stop our expansion. We will not give you supervision over our affairs. We will not surrender a single colony, and we will not submit to 100 years of integration. The silence that followed was absolute. For several seconds, None of the counselors moved or spoke. They seemed unable to process what they had just heard. Then exploded. "What?" He stood up so fast his throne scraped against the floor. "You dare refuse the council?" "I do," said simply. "More than that. Humanity is withdrawing from all peace negotiations with the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, we no longer recognize this council's authority over human space or human affairs. From this moment forward, the council and its member species are simply our neighbors in the galaxy. Nothing more." Chaos erupted. All 12 counselors began shouting at once. Some shouted in languages the humans couldn't understand. Others made threatening gestures. His entire body turned bright red, pulsing with rage. "This is madness," his voice cut through the noise. "You are one species, one, we are 12. We command hundreds of systems and billions of ships." "Then you have nothing to fear from us," Captain said. She didn't raise her voice, but somehow everyone heard her. "If we're so weak and you're so strong, our refusal shouldn't matter." "You will be destroyed," snarled. "We will turn your colonies into dust. We will blockade Earth itself until your people beg us to stop. You have chosen extinction." "Perhaps," said, "but we will face it as a free people, not as your pets." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small data chip. He tossed it onto the crystal floor. It landed with a tiny click and began projecting a hologram. The hologram showed a recording. It was from this very chamber, but the humans weren't there. Instead, it showed 3 of the counselors and meeting in secret. The timestamp was from 2 weeks before the peace talks had even begun. In the recording spoke, "The humans have too much ambition. If we let them continue, they will challenge our power within a decade. Better to crush them now while we can claim it's about peace and protocol." "Agreed," said in the recording. "But we must be careful. Some of the other council members might object to unprovoked war. We need a reason." "Then we give them impossible terms," suggested. "Terms so harsh that the humans must refuse. And when they do, we have our cause for war. We can say they rejected peace." The recording continued. The 3 counselors discussed how they would divide human territory among themselves after the conquest. They laughed about how the other council members would be too focused on their own shares to ask difficult questions. The hologram ended. The chamber was silent again, but this was a different kind of silence. Several counselors were staring at and with expressions of shock or anger. "You recorded a private conversation." His voice was dangerous. "We recorded a conspiracy," Minyu said. "You weren't the only ones who planted surveillance devices in this station. The difference is we did it better." Looked up at all the counselors now. This peace talk was never real. It was a trap. You decided to destroy humanity before we ever walked through those doors. The only question was how to make it look justified. "This proves nothing," said, but her glow had dimmed. "The council acts as one. We all agreed to these terms." "Did you?" Looked at the other counselors. "Did all of you know about this meeting? Did all of you agree that humanity should be destroyed? Or were you also being manipulated?" Some of the counselors began talking among themselves. Their voices were worried, suspicious. A few of them were looking at with open hostility. "Enough of this," roared. "So what if we planned? So what if we decided your fate before you arrived? That is the council's right. We are the elders of this galaxy. We decide who rises and who falls." "Then you'll do it without us," said. He turned to leave. "If you walk out that door, it is war," said. "I will personally lead the fleet that turns Earth into a graveyard." Stopped, he looked back over his shoulder. "Counselor, if you come to Earth, I will personally ensure that you never leave. That is not a threat. It is a fact." The 3 humans walked out. This time, no one tried to stop them. Half the counselors were too busy arguing with each other. The other half were too shocked to react. As the doors closed behind the humans, allowed herself a small smile. "That went well." "Phase 1 complete," Minyu said, checking his tablet. I'm getting confirmation messages now. All human stations are evacuating. All our merchant ships are returning to human space. Every human citizen living in Council territory is being pulled out. How long? Asked. 72 hours for complete extraction, but most will be out within 24. Good, the Council will need time to sort out their internal mess. By the time they decide what to do about us, we'll be ready. They walked through the corridors of Prime toward their docked shuttle. As they passed, they saw other species. Traders, visitors, diplomats from neutral worlds. All of them stared at the humans. Word was already spreading about what had happened in the Council chamber. At the shuttle, stopped and looked back at the massive station. Do you think they'll really attack? Will said. His pride won't let him do anything else. The question is how many of the other counselors will follow him. And if they all do, climbed into the shuttle. Then we'll teach the galaxy a lesson it won't forget. Humanity has been preparing for this since the day we first met the Council. We saw this coming. We hoped we were wrong, but we were ready either way. The shuttle lifted off from Prime. As it accelerated toward human space, Minu pulled up a display showing the location of every human colony and ship. All stations are reporting successful evacuations. 0 casualties so far, and the Council still has no idea what we're really capable of. Let's keep it that way a little longer, said. Let them think we're running scared. Let them believe they've already won. When they realize the truth, it will be too late. Behind them, on Prime, the Galactic Council was falling apart. Accusations flew between the counselors. Trust that had existed for centuries crumbled in hours. Some species were recalling their fleets, afraid that other council members might attack them next. Others were demanding that be removed from leadership. But wasn't listening. He was already sending orders to his military commanders. The hegemony would assemble the largest fleet the galaxy had seen in living memory. They would crush humanity so completely that no other species would ever dare to defy the Council again. He didn't know that humanity was counting on exactly that response. He didn't know that humans had spent the last 3 years preparing for war while smiling and being diplomatic. He would learn soon enough. In human space, alarms were sounding, not emergency alarms, mobilization alarms. From Earth to the furthest colony, humanity was waking up. The time for peace was over. Now came the war they had always known was coming. And they were ready. 3 weeks passed. The galaxy changed during those weeks in ways that no one had predicted. First, all human communication stopped. Every human colony, every human ship, every human station went silent. They didn't respond to calls. They didn't send out messages. They simply vanished from the galactic communication network as if someone had flipped a switch. Second, human trade ended. Merchant vessels that had been carrying goods between human and council space all returned home. Trade stations that relied on human cargo found themselves with empty docks. Some species discovered too late that they had become dependent on human efficiency. Food shipments stopped. Medical supplies ran out. Rare metals that humans had been mining and selling became impossible to find. Third, the Council's unity continued to crumble. 4 species had withdrawn from the Council completely, angry about being deceived by and his conspirators. 2 more were threatening to leave. The remaining 6 were barely speaking to each other. But it was the 4th change that frightened the Council most. Their scout ships kept disappearing. Counselor sent 10 ships to observe the nearest human colony. None returned. He sent 20 more to different human systems. They vanished too. Every ship that crossed into human space simply stopped transmitting. No battles were reported. No distress signals were sent. The ships just ceased to exist. At first, blamed equipment failure. Then he blamed sabotage. Finally, he had to accept the truth. Humanity was destroying his scouts and doing it so completely that no evidence remained. On the human colony of New Sol, things were very different from what the Council imagined. The colony wasn't preparing to be destroyed. It was preparing to fight. Engineers stood in the control center of a massive defense platform that hadn't existed 4 weeks ago. Well, it had existed. It just hadn't been visible. Now it floated in orbit, one of 30 identical stations surrounding the colony. "Status report," she said, watching the screens in front of her. "All weapon systems are online," reported technician. "The Council fleet won't even see us until we fire." "Good, what about the stealth nets?" "Active and stable. Any ship trying to scan New Sol will see exactly what we want them to see, an undefended colony with minimal military presence." Nodded. This was the trick humanity had been preparing for years. While the Council watched human colonies through long-range sensors, they saw small settlements with basic defenses. What they didn't see were the hundreds of weapons platforms hidden by stealth technology. What they didn't see were the massive shipyards built inside asteroids. What they didn't see was the real strength of humanity's military. Humans had learned a valuable lesson early in their history. If you want to be ready for war, prepare in secret. Let your enemies think you're weak until the moment you prove you're not. "Commander is on the comm," said. "He wants to speak with you." Accepted the call. Commander's face appeared on her screen. He was on Earth, coordinating the defense of humanity's home world and all 17 colonies from the Strategic Command Center. "How are we looking?" asked. "New Sol is ready. So are all the other colonies. The Council could send their entire fleet and we'd hold them off." "Don't get overconfident. Has numbers on his side. Intelligence suggests he's assembling at least 6,000 ships." Whistled. "That's more than I expected." "He's calling in favors from 5 other Council species. They're contributing ships and crews. This is going to be the largest military force the galaxy has seen in centuries." "Can we handle it?" Was quiet for a moment. "If our technology works as well in real combat as it did in simulations, yes. If there are unexpected problems, it will be difficult." "Where do you think they'll hit first?" "Station. It's our largest border colony and closest to Council space. We'll want to make a statement, destroy completely and hope the rest of our colonies surrender." "Will Captain be ready?" "Has been ready since before the peace talks started. She's been commanding's defense fleet for 2 years. If anyone can handle this, it's her." The call ended. Went back to checking systems. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at their stations. Everyone was calm. Everyone was professional, but could feel the tension in the air. They were about to fight the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy. On Prime, Counselor stood in front of a massive holographic display. It showed the Council Armada assembling near the border of human space. 6,342 ships, heavy cruisers, battleships, carriers, destroyers, weapons that had kept peace, or enforced it, for thousands of years. "Magnificent," said. "The humans will see this fleet and realize their mistake. Perhaps they will surrender before we even fire." Stood beside him. She was no longer glowing as brightly as before. The revelations about the secret conspiracy had damaged her reputation. She needed a victory to restore it. "And if they don't surrender, then we destroy Station and any ship they send to defend it. We show the galaxy what happens to species who defy the Council." "Some of the other counselors are worried," said quietly. "They say the humans are too quiet, too calm. They wonder if we're walking into a trap." Laughed. "A trap? The humans have 17 colonies and perhaps a few hundred ships. We have 6,000. What kind of trap could threaten us?" He gave the order. The Armada began to move toward Station. The journey would take 3 days at standard faster-than-light speeds. Broadcast their approach on all communication channels. He wanted the humans to know what was coming. He wanted them to feel fear. But on Station, Captain wasn't afraid. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable, and watched the Council fleet approaching on her long-range sensors. "They're not even trying to hide," said her tactical officer, Lieutenant. "They want us to see them." "Let them show off," said. "Count the ships, I want exact numbers." 6,342 vessels. Mix of ship types. They've got heavy firepower, but their formation is sloppy. Too many different species trying to coordinate. And our forces? All stealth platforms are in position. Defense fleet is ready to deploy. We've got 19,000 ships standing by. Said that number quietly, but several officers on the bridge looked up in surprise. 19,000 ships was more than 3 times what the Council fleet had. But that couldn't be right. Intelligence said humans only had a few hundred vessels. "Sir," said carefully, "should I double-check that count?" "It's correct," said. "Every number you're seeing is real. We've been building ships for 3 years. The Council saw what we wanted them to see, small defense fleets and patrol vessels. They never looked inside those asteroid mining operations we were running. They never questioned why we needed so many ore refineries. We were building warships inside the asteroids," said, understanding flooding through him. "The whole time, right under their noses." "Exactly. And not just any warships. Ships designed with technology they've never seen. Chief Scientist Minu figured out how to improve faster-than-light drives. Our ships can jump in and out of battle faster than anything in the Council fleet. Engineer developed new weapons that bypass their shields completely. Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Security. The fewer people who knew the full plan, the less chance of leaks. Now everyone needs to know because in 3 days, we're going to teach the Council a lesson they'll never forget." Turn to face her bridge crew. "Listen carefully. We're not going to run. We're not going to hide. When that fleet arrives, we're going to meet them in open battle. And we're going to win so decisively that every species in the galaxy will hear about it." "What are our orders, Captain?" asked. "Let them think we're scared. Let them get close. And when they attack, we drop the stealth fields and hit them with everything we have. We end this battle in less than an hour." 3 days later, the Council Armada arrived at station, stood on his flagship's bridge, staring at the displays, looked exactly as his intelligence had reported. 1 space station, a few dozen defensive satellites, maybe 50 human ships in orbit. "They're not even trying to run," said his second-in-command. "Are they that stupid?" "They're that arrogant," corrected. "They think their little display at Prime means something. They think walking out of peace talks makes them strong. We're about to show them real strength." He opened a communication channel to station. "Humans, this is Counselor of the Hegemony. You have 1 chance to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be occupied. Refuse and you will be destroyed." Captain's face appeared on his screen. She looked calm, too calm for someone facing 6,000 warships. "Counselor," she said politely, "your fleet is impressive. Unfortunately for you, appearances can be deceiving." "Is that a refusal?" growled. "That's a warning," replied. "Turn your fleet around, leave human space. If you attack, you will lose." Cut the communication. "She's insane. All weapons prepare to fire. We'll vaporize that station and every ship defending it." "Sir," his sensor officer said suddenly, "I'm reading massive power spikes all around us, hundreds of them, no thousands." "Explain," demanded. "I don't know, sir. They just appeared, like they were invisible and suddenly turned on lights." Then the truth became clear. All around the Council fleet, space began to shimmer, stealth fields dropped, weapon platforms appeared, and ships, so many ships. "New contact count," the sensor officer said, his voice shaking. 19,000 human vessels. They were hiding. All of them were hiding. Stared at the display in horror. They weren't surrounding a weak colony. They were surrounded by an armada 3 times larger than his own. Captain's voice came over all channels. "Fire." The battle began. The first shots changed everything. Human weapons fired in perfect coordination. Thousands of beams and projectiles crossed space in the same instant. The Council fleet's shields, technology that had protected ships for centuries, simply failed. The weapons passed through the barriers as if they weren't there. On's flagship alarms screamed. "Shields are useless," his tactical officer shouted. "Their weapons are operating on a different frequency. Our barriers can't detect them." "Return fire," roared. All ships return fire. The Council fleet opened up with everything they had. Energy weapons, missiles, mass drivers. Enough firepower to destroy planets. But the human ships were already moving. They jumped short distances in bursts of faster-than-light travel. They appeared, fired, and vanished before the Council weapons could track them properly. Captain watched the battle from her command chair with cold satisfaction. Tactical status. Lieutenant checked his displays. "Enemy formation is breaking apart. They're trying to spread out, but our ships are too fast. We're hitting them from every direction. They can't coordinate a defense." Casualties. On our side, 3 ships damaged, 0 destroyed. On theirs, 278 ships destroyed in the first minute, 300 more heavily damaged. Allowed herself a thin smile. "Continue assault pattern. Focus on their command ships. If we take out their leaders, the rest will fold." Across the battlefield, chaos consumed the Council fleet. Ships collided as captains tried desperately to maneuver against an enemy they couldn't predict. Communication channels filled with panic and contradicting orders. Some captains wanted to retreat. Others wanted to press forward. None of them could agree. Counselor grabbed his command console, trying to restore order. "All ships, maintain formation. Focus fire on Sector 7. But it was too late. A squadron of human destroyers appeared directly in front of his flagship. They fired in unison. Ship shuddered as weapons tore through its hull. Systems exploded. The lights failed, replaced by emergency red glow. "Shields are gone," someone screamed. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 12. Engines are offline. Life support failing." Realized with cold clarity that he was about to die. His flagship, the pride of the hegemony, was being torn apart. Around him, dozens of other Council ships were meeting the same fate. Then the human destroyers stopped firing. Instead, they began broadcasting a message. "Attention Council flagship. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with destruction." Never tried to give the order to self-destruct his ship. He would rather die than surrender. But his second-in-command grabbed his arm. "Sir, no. We have 12,000 crew on this ship. You can't kill them all because of pride." Looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, some with fear, some with anger. They knew the battle was lost. They wanted to live. "Stand down," said quietly. "All ships under my command, cease fire and prepare for boarding." Across the battlefield, the fighting slowed. Not all Council ships surrendered. Some tried to run. Some tried to fight to the end. But within 37 minutes of the first shot, the battle was over. The Council had lost. 2,000 ships destroyed. Another 1,000 captured. The remaining 3,000 scattered in retreat, jumping to faster-than-light speeds without coordination or planning. They ran in every direction, desperate to escape. Captain stood up from her command chair. "Secure all captured vessels. I want damage assessments and casualty reports within the hour. And someone get me a communication link to Earth. Commander needs to know we won." "Yes, sir." "Captain, there's another issue. 6 other Council species launched simultaneous attacks on our other colonies. New Sol stationed the shipyards. And all attacks were repelled. The Council lost ships at every target. They didn't win a single engagement." Nodded slowly. "Broadcast this battle's recording on all galactic channels. Make sure every species sees what happened here. Let them know that the age of the Council is over." On Earth, Commander received the reports from all fronts. Every human colony had successfully defended itself. The Council's grand military action, meant to crush humanity and restore galactic order, had ended in total defeat. Casualty report, asked his staff. 41 human ships destroyed, 316 crew members killed, another 700 wounded. Closed his eyes for a moment. 316 people, 316 families who would receive terrible news. Victory always had a cost. And the Council. Approximately 4,000 ships destroyed across all engagements. Estimated casualties in the millions. 24 counselor-level officials captured, including himself. Send medical ships to help survivors, even enemy survivors. We fight to win, but we don't let people die when we can save them. Sir, some officers are questioning that order. These are the same people who tried to destroy our colonies. I know exactly who they are, said firmly, which is why it matters that we treat them better than they would have treated us. Send the medical ships. Across the galaxy, the news spread like fire. The mighty Galactic Council, rulers of the stars for thousands of years, had been defeated by humanity. One species, the youngest space-faring civilization. They had destroyed the Council's fleet in less than an hour. Some species celebrated. They had lived under Council rule for generations, forced to follow laws they never agreed to. Finally, someone had stood up to them. Finally, someone had won. Other species panicked. If the Council could be defeated, what did that mean for galactic peace? Would humanity become the new tyrants? Would they conquer everyone else? On Prime, the remaining counselors gathered in emergency session. Only 6 species were represented now. The others had withdrawn from the Council entirely or were dealing with their own internal chaos. Counselor spoke first. Her crystal body barely glowed at all now. We must discuss terms of surrender. Surrender, Counselor's voice was shrill. The Council does not surrender. The Council just lost 4,000 ships, snapped. We are broken. Our military is scattered. Half our member species have abandoned us. We have no choice. She's right, said Counselor, representing a species of plant-like beings. We underestimated humanity catastrophically. They were never a young species stumbling through space. They were a military power hiding in plain sight. We were fools. What do you suggest? Asked another counselor. We contact Ambassador. We ask for peace terms. And we pray that humanity is more merciful than we would have been. The counselors sat in silence. Pride warred with survival. Finally, one by one, they agreed. The Galactic Council, for the first time in its long history, would beg for peace. In human space, preparations began for the next phase. Military victories were temporary. Real change required diplomacy, laws, and agreements that would last. Ambassador knew this. So did the rest of humanity's leadership. They'll ask for peace, predicted, sitting in a meeting with Earth's government leaders. The question is what terms we offer. We should demand their complete surrender, one general suggested. Occupy their territory, make them pay for trying to destroy us. No, said firmly. That makes us the same as them. We didn't fight this war to become the new council. We fought to prove that no species has the right to rule others without consent. Then what do we demand? Equality. We demand that every species in this galaxy be treated as equals. No more council making decisions for everyone. No more ancient species claiming authority over younger ones. We create a new system where disputes are settled through law, not threats. And if they refuse? Looked around the room. Then we continue being prepared to defend ourselves, but we give them the chance to do better. We show the galaxy that humans fight when necessary but prefer peace. That's how we build something that lasts. Captain, still at station, received a communication request from. The former counselor was in a human detention facility, his flagship impounded. Let it through, said. His face appeared on screen. He looked old now, defeated. Captain, I request to speak with whoever leads your military. I'm listening. I underestimated you, all of you. I thought humans were children. I was wrong. Yes, you were. I want to know, how long have you been preparing for this? Considered not answering, but there was no point in secrets now. Since the day we first met the council, since the first time one of your representatives told us that young species needed to learn their place, we smiled and were polite and followed your rules. And the whole time, we built weapons and ships and prepared for the day you would try to put us in chains. You deceived us. You tried to conquer us. We simply defended ourselves more effectively than you expected. Was quiet for a long moment. What happens now? Now we talk. Real peace talks this time, with real negotiation. No tricks, no traps. You tried to cage humanity. Instead, you broke the cage that held the galaxy. What comes next is up to all of us. The communication ended. Looked out at the stars beyond her viewport. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Station. The galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. Ambassador walked through the corridors of Prime once again, but this time everything was different. The massive station was quieter now. Fewer ships docked here. Fewer diplomats filled the halls. The Galactic Council's power had collapsed, and with it, much of the station's importance. He entered the council chamber. The 12 thrones were still there, but only 5 held representatives. 7 species had abandoned the council completely. Their governments had either fallen or withdrawn from galactic affairs entirely, focusing on internal problems. Counselor sat in her throne, but she was no longer a voice of authority. She was a survivor trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Beside her sat Counselor and 3 others. All of them looked diminished. This time did not stand in the center of the crystal floor like a petitioner. Instead, a table had been set up at floor level. Chairs surrounded it, equals sitting together to negotiate. Ambassador said as sat down, "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "Thank you for requesting talks," replied. His tone was polite but not warm. "Shall we begin?" "First, I must say that the Council acknowledges its mistakes. We acted with arrogance. We underestimated humanity. We paid a terrible price for those errors." "Yes, you did. 4,000 ships, millions of lives, all because you couldn't accept that a young species might be your equal." Glow dimmed. "We know, and we will carry that shame for generations, but we are here now to discuss the future, not the past." Pulled out a data tablet. "Very well. Humanity has prepared terms for a lasting peace. These are not negotiable. You can accept them or reject them, but we will not soften them." The counselors exchanged worried looks, but they had no choice except to listen. "First term," said, "the Galactic Council is dissolved. It no longer has any legal authority over any species or territory." "Dissolved," leaned forward, "but the Council has maintained peace for thousands of years." "The Council maintained control," corrected, "sometimes through peace, sometimes through threats, sometimes through war. That era is over." "What would replace it?" asked another counselor. "A new organization. We're calling it the Galactic Assembly. Every space-faring species gets one vote, regardless of age or power. Decisions are made by majority rule. No species can be forced to follow laws they voted against, but no species can attack another without consequences." "That's chaos," said. "Young species will make foolish decisions." "Perhaps, but they'll be their own foolish decisions. That's what freedom means." Captain, who had been standing quietly behind, spoke up. "Besides, the Council's wisdom led to a war you couldn't win. Maybe it's time to try something different." Continued reading from his tablet. "Second term. All member species of the former Council will pay reparations to humanity, not as punishment, but to help rebuild what was damaged in your attacks." "How much?" asked carefully. "Enough to repair our ships and compensate the families of those who died. We'll provide exact figures." The payments will be spread over 10 years so they don't cripple your economies. That's generous, admitted quietly. We're not trying to destroy you. We're trying to build something better. Third term. Any species that attacks another unprovoked will face a coalition response. This includes former council members. If you go to war without just cause, humanity and any allies we can gather will defend the victim. So you appoint yourselves as galactic police. Voice was bitter. No, said firmly. We enforce the same rule everyone has to follow. Don't attack others without cause. It's simple. If you can't manage that, you don't deserve to be part of the galactic community. He looked at each counselor in turn. Fourth term. All prisoners from the recent conflict will be returned to their home species. That includes counselor and the others we captured. We're not keeping hostages. We'll face trial on his, said. Many of my people are calling for his execution. That's your decision to make, not ours. We'll transfer him to your custody. Admiral, promoted after the battle, added, but we'll be watching. If you execute prisoners of war, that violates the very laws you claim to support. Actions like that will have consequences. Turn to the final section of his tablet. Last term. This is the most important one. The galaxy adopts a new charter. All species are recognized as legally equal. No species can claim authority over another based on age or tradition. Disputes are settled through arbitration, not force. And any species that wants to join the assembly is welcome, provided they agree to follow these rules. The chamber was silent. The counselors looked at each other, having quiet conversations through gestures and expressions. Finally spoke, these terms are harsh. They erase everything the council built. They erase the council's control, corrected. They don't erase cooperation or friendship or trade. Those things can continue. They just happen between equals now instead of between rulers and subjects. If we refuse, then we go our separate ways. Humanity continues to defend its territory and its allies. You continue to try holding together what's left of the council. Eventually, more species will leave. More conflicts will erupt. The galaxy descends into chaos because you couldn't let go of power. And if we accept, then we start building something new. A galaxy where every species has a voice, where disputes are settled through law, where young civilizations aren't crushed for being ambitious, where old civilizations aren't overthrown for being established, a place where everyone can thrive. Another long silence, then stood up. I vote to accept these terms. My species agrees to join the Galactic Assembly. One by one, the other counselors stood. Some did it quickly, others hesitated, but in the end, all 5 agreed. Then it's settled, said. He pulled out a physical document written on actual paper. It listed all the terms they had just discussed. Sign this, and we can begin the real work. The counselors came down from their thrones for the first time in living memory. They sat at the table as equals and signed the document. When they finished, signed for humanity. Admiral witnessed the signatures. The Galactic Council is dissolved, announced. The Galactic Assembly is born. In the weeks that followed, things moved quickly. Other species, hearing about the new assembly, requested membership. Some were neutral species who had never liked the Council's heavy hand. Others were former Council subjects who finally saw a chance for real independence. A philosopher and diplomat who had advised throughout the negotiations became the Assembly's first speaker. Her job was to facilitate discussions and ensure everyone's voice was heard. On her first day, she stood in a newly renovated chamber on Prime. The 12 huge thrones had been removed. In their place were hundreds of simple chairs arranged in a circle. No one sat higher than anyone else. Welcome, said as representatives from 43 different species took their seats. This is a new beginning for our galaxy. For thousands of years, a small group decided what was best for everyone. That era has ended. Now we decide together. A representative from the Ashen Collective raised her hand. What if we disagree? What if we can't find compromise? Then we keep talking until we do, replied. That's what democracy means. It's messy, it's slow, it's frustrating, but it's better than the alternative, it's better than war. Over the next months, the Assembly passed its first laws, rules about trade, regulations about territory claims, agreements about sharing scientific knowledge. None of the laws were perfect. All of them required compromise, but they worked because everyone had a voice in creating them. On Earth, Commander received a report from Engineer. She had been working with scientists from 6 other species to improve faster-than-light travel technology. We've made a breakthrough, explained over the communication link. By sharing our research with the Ashen Collective and the Verdant Cooperative, we've developed a new drive system that's 30% more efficient than anything humanity built alone. That's what cooperation looks like, said with satisfaction. We're stronger together than apart. There's more. 3 species have requested help building defense networks similar to ours. They're worried about pirates and raiders now that the Council's military is gone. What did you tell them? That we'd help. We're not keeping our technology secret anymore. If other species can defend themselves, everyone benefits. At Station, Captain watched the construction of a new facility. It would be a joint training center where different species could learn from each other's military strategies, not to prepare for war between species, but to coordinate against common threats. Strange, isn't it? Lieutenant said, standing beside her. 6 months ago we were destroying Council ships. Now we're helping train their soldiers. That's progress, replied. We beat them in battle, but that was the easy part. Building trust afterward is much harder, but it's also more important. Former counselor sat in a cell on his awaiting trial. His people had not executed him, but his future looked grim. He had time to think about his mistakes. One day he received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador came to see him. Why are you here? Asked. To gloat. To offer perspective, said. He sat down across from the former counselor. You tried to destroy humanity because you were afraid that we would challenge your power, afraid that things would change. And I was right, look what happened. Things changed, but not in the way you feared. Humanity didn't conquer the galaxy, we opened it up. We gave everyone a chance to be free, including your own people. My people hate me now. Yes, because you led them into a war they couldn't win, because you cost them thousands of lives, but also because you represented everything that was wrong with the old system. You thought being old meant being wise. You thought power gave you the right to make choices for everyone. And you think you're different. I know we're different, because when we won, we didn't enslave you. We didn't execute prisoners. We didn't conquer your territory. We offered peace. We offered equality. That's the difference between rule and leadership. Stood to leave. Your people will decide your fate. I won't interfere, but I hope you understand now. Humanity didn't want to be your enemy. We just refused to be your subjects. There's a difference. He walked out, leaving alone with his thoughts. 2 years after the Battle of Station, the Galactic Assembly held its first major celebration. Representatives from 87 species gathered on Prime for the event. They came to mark the anniversary of the new charter's signing. Stood before the assembled crowd. 2 years ago, this galaxy was changing. Today, we can see the results. Trade is up. Conflicts are down. Species that never spoke to each other are now cooperating on scientific projects. Young civilizations are no longer afraid to grow. Old civilizations are finding new purposes beyond maintaining control. She gestured to the diverse crowd. This is what the future looks like. Not perfect, not without problems, but better, always working to be better. In the audience sat Beside and Minu. They watched as continued her speech, outlining the Assembly's goals for the next decade. Do you think it will last? Asked quietly. "Nothing lasts forever," replied. "But we've built something good, something worth protecting. As long as we keep working at it, it will endure." Minyu nodded. "We changed the galaxy, not through conquest, through example. That's more powerful than any weapon." The celebration continued late into the night. Species that had been enemies months ago now shared food and stories. Scientists exchanged ideas. Merchants discussed trade routes. Children from different worlds played together. Humanity had walked out of peace talks 6 months before the Battle of. The Galactic Council had thought that meant war. They had been right about the war but wrong about the outcome. The Council had tried to cage humanity. Instead, humanity had freed the galaxy. And in doing so, they proved something important. That true strength isn't about domination, it's about lifting others up. That real leadership isn't about control, it's about service. That lasting peace doesn't come from threats, it comes from mutual respect and shared purpose. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of the Galactic Assembly, built on the principles humanity had fought to protect, had begun. And while challenges remained, the future looked brighter than it had in thousands of years. Because finally, the galaxy belonged to everyone.